Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about focus. So let's get into it. So the question in question was a little bit of a long-winded one, but the short version was, Frederick, is it better for a developer to focus on front-end or back-end or something like that, because it might be too difficult to be a full stack developer immediately? Basically, how should I go about becoming a full stack developer? This is a good question. I can understand that it might feel a little bit overwhelming to give it a try and become a full stack developer, because by definition this will be one of the harder things that you can attempt. Some people, one of my old coworkers used to say that there is no such thing as a full stack developer. It's just a person who knows one of backend or frontend fairly well and sucks at the other thing. Maybe that's true, I don't know. But in theory, what you're going to attempt is to master both sides of two sides of a coin, basically. You have the front end and then you have the back end. And being a master of both of those is going to be tricky. Now, the thing I wrote back to this subscriber was pretty much that the idea that this person has, that you're going to focus all your attention on one thing, get really good at that thing, and then switch over and then focus on something else, is in a way absolutely this is a way to go about achieving the full stack role, right? But I don't want you to think about this as some magical silver bullet to achieve this goal of becoming a full stack developer, because it's not a silver bullet. The question here is very similar to other questions that I've gotten that are in the same sort of line of thinking, where I've had questions where people have asked, should I focus on my English skills and study that for several months before I go into programming to prepare to become a programmer, or things like that? Or should I learn operations and get really good at that, because that's also important to be a programmer, right? Before I start learning how to code, right? And all of these things, they kind of come back to the same thing, guys. My old martial arts trainer, he used to say to me, because I had a few of these ideas as well when I was 19 years old or something like that. He said to me, Frederick, if you want to be good at fighting, then you fight. If you want to be a good swimmer, you swim. If you want to be a good runner, you run. You don't go and sit on a bicycle or play golf or anything like that because it's sort of useful. Because it is true that it is sort of relevant, but nothing will beat doing the thing that you're actually there to do and focusing all your attention on that. That's the thing that you should be focusing on. And in this case, when we're talking about front-end versus back-end and should you focus on this or that, the reality is that you don't really have a choice here. Well, very few of you are going to have a choice. You see, the first job that you get is going to be the thing that shapes your career most in the beginning of things. The first few jobs are the thing that's going to influence who you become within this industry more than anything you can possibly imagine. You can forget about, whatever you decide to study beforehand is less important. Like all the preparations you do for actual work is a lot less important than what you're actually going to face in the workplace. And here there is a balance to this, because you see, just because you have a mental picture of who you're going to be and what you're going to do, that actually doesn't really matter all. Like, it does factor in. There's a balancing act going on here between job availability in your region and your personal desires. Because as you can imagine, if you want to work in a specific way, but then you don't get all that many options, or you have a hard time finding a job or something like that, you're still going to have to take whatever comes your way, right? So if you're going to be a full stack developer, reality is that it doesn't actually matter all that much where you start. Because the thing that is important, the thing that truly matters, is that you get to be in an environment where your skills will be honed. Like an environment where you have peers or seniors or something like that, that can help you acquire the skills that you need to survive in this industry. And as a full stack developer, you should in theory have no preference what you do. So it doesn't matter if you focus on frontend or backend, or if you start doing full stack immediately. They are all equal to you. Now, if you want to be a frontend developer, and it's kind of weird that you take your first job as a backend developer, or vice versa, right? But as a full stack developer, it shouldn't really matter. And overall, I would say that if I were to give you any tips whatsoever, I would say that regardless of what you decide to do, regardless of if you want to be a backend developer or a frontend developer or a full stack developer, you should start out when you're studying as a full stack developer, to have that perspective that, all right, I'm going to learn the basics of web development. Because that's the thing that is going to matter most to you. That foundation is extremely important. I know that I've talked to quite a few people who don't seem to agree with this, but the thing is that it's kind of weird for a web developer, regardless of if you're front-end or back-end or something like that, to not understand the basics of how the web works. Because when I'm stating to you that you should start out as a full stack developer, that doesn't mean that you're gonna master that thing. Because some juniors seem to believe that if you just study for a little while for full stack development, then you're just magically a full stack developer. Guys, it takes many years to get good at just backend or frontend. And then you can imagine how hard it is to get good at full stack, because that's what I'm saying. To master this area, it is almost equivalent to mastering two fields or two specialities at the same time. So what I want you to take away from this is that it doesn't matter if you start on the server as a front-end developer or a back-end developer, or a full stack developer, if your goal is to be a full stack developer, because it's going to take you so much time, regardless of what you do, to learn all of this stuff. The thing that actually influences what type of developer you're gonna be is the work tasks in your role when you start working. Because when you start working, you are going to start getting into a pattern of, well, a work process, if you will. That process is the thing that influences the most what you're going to call yourself in the future, if you're going to be a back-end, front-end, whatever you're going to be, right? But I urge you to start out when you're in the preparation stages before you take your first job, to try to understand a full stack role. Because trust me, the things that you're going to be able to learn by yourself, these basic things, they are nothing in comparison to the sort of stuff you're going to learn 2-3 years into your actual career. But having that foundation is extremely useful for every single developer who wants to make a career out of this. Have a great day.